Hello and welcome to Timberdoodle's 2023 7th grade curriculum package. I'm Grace, this is Hope. We're going to walk you through the Elite 7th grade. We do have the basic and the complete or the customizable version online if you want to modify anything. But we're going to walk you through an Elite package so you know everything that's available for the 7th grade. And we're going to start with language arts. Also, I should mention the handbook, which is not pictured here. That's going to include your schedule. It's going to give you an overview of each of the items. It's going to give you access to our online scheduler where you can set out your week's worth and also add on anything if you have like weekly chores or something that you want to also list on there for your student to be checking off. Basically, it gives you a way for your student to kind of self-manage their work for the week. And you can watch our scheduler and handbook video to learn more about that. And it also includes our reading challenge. But let's go ahead and dive into the language arts. And the meat of the program is grammar for the well-trained mind. This is going to be an intensive grammar course for your student. But what I love about this is it has a modifiable schedule. So there's 36 weeks of lessons. But they say for the student who's in 5th to 8th grade, you may only go through the first 20 weeks of those lessons. And that's totally okay. So you've got that modification already known going into the program. It's going to give you everything you need to know. It's very scripted, and you've got the workbook and the teacher's book ready to go on here. That's going to teach your child. So you're going to go through between there's 4 grade levels that you're going to do this in, and this is the first year you're going to do it. By the time you hit that 4th year of doing it, your student's going to know everything they need to know grammar-wise and be very proficient in that. And then for the writing, we have this Wordsmith program, which is humorous and fun for the kids to do. It's going to work on descriptive writing. It's going to work on narrative. It's going to give you a number of different writing skills, but in an approachable way. So you've got easy to follow exercises, tips, and proven writing techniques for your student in that course there. And then let's look at literature. Yes, and so in this grade we're including Mazda's Jade, and as we've said in other grades, Mazda's is great for their content. So they have included a number of different literary works. They've done historical literary works, they've done poems, they've done modern works, but everything included in here has been vetted to be a wholesome work so that you don't have to be worried about what your child is reading. Also included in the reader, so you've got the reader, it comes with questions at the end so that you can take it further. We would suggest for most students, they're going to read the selection, they're going to answer the questions either orally or written, depending on what you want, how far you want to go with this. They also have the word bank in here to talk about vocabulary, and then some thinking questions, recalling, interpreting, including, and concluding. Also, they have creative writing prompts. So again, this is something that can go as little or as much as you want, but we would recommend most families will read the work, then answer the questions, and then probably also use the workbook. So this is a fill in the blank. You're going to talk about vocabulary exercises. You're going to write a story using your vocabulary words, write more about the story, do a graphic organizer about the timeline of the events. So kind of, again, give your child a little bit more in-depth look at the story, not just read it, but actually look in depth at it. And then if you want to go further than that, this is where, especially now is when the teacher's guides come in handy. So they will also deal with everything we've already covered, but they also will tell you, hey, for this selection, so we were looking at after 20 years, and they can tell you, okay, the genre is fiction, the style is a surprise ending. The language skill that they're working on in this work is recognizing how plot, character, setting, and theme are conveyed throughout the dialogue, and understanding that an O. Henry story with its surprise ending is like a good long joke with a punchline. So then when you go to that actual lesson, they've made it so easy because they have given you a small copy of exactly what your child's reading, so you know exactly where their notes are referencing to. You don't have to be peering into their book and peering into yours. You've got it all right here, and they will point out and underline in the selection that you have pictured, here is where it's a plot complication, or here's where the plot has a climax, or here's the surprise ending, and talk a little bit more about that so that you can go more in depth with your child and say, let's really dig deep and see all the different, learn all that we can about this literary work and the different writing styles. So as much as you want. Yes. And then word roots. This is really great for helping you understand words, and it's going to help with spelling. I loved it when we were in our younger years going through EMT class, because going through word roots, all of a sudden I started understanding better some of the medical terminology that I was learning because I understood the prefixes or the suffixes. So, and your students are going to find that for general life, that this going through word roots is going to teach them vocabulary, it's going to teach them comprehension, and it's just going to enable them to function better. For 7th grade in math, we have the Matthew C pre-algebra level. So continuing on with the Matthew C series, because of its mastery approach, because of its multi-sensory approach with the manipulatives, the DVD, or online access to the lesson if you wish. This also includes a number of worksheets. So whether your child struggles with math, they've got a lot of worksheets for you to access, or if your child math is easy, they just suggest that you take the pertinent ones for each week and tear them out. Don't have them do every single worksheet included. Also the test booklet and the manipulative. So you've got the regular integer blocks, you've got the decimal integer blocks where it's changed this to a 1, these to tenths, and these to hundredths, and you have the algebraic equation bars. So everything that you need to teach your child the basics of pre-algebra this year in 7th grade. All right, let's take a look at thinking skills. So the bookwork portion is going to be the basics of critical thinking, and this is going to work through a number of different arguments and teach a real life skill, but its primary focus is going to be on identifying and evaluating evidence. So just for example, you've got this page where you're going to be looking at the picture, you're going to read this. Mr. and Mrs. Gatsby decided to go on vacation. They packed their car with everything they needed for the trip and began the short drive to a small cabin they rented on a lake in Minnesota. Now the student's going to look at a number of different questions and then answer whether it's probably true or probably false, and then explain why. So, true or false, Gatsby's live in Minnesota. The Gatsby's are driving a red car. The Gatsby's are only planning on going on vacation for one night before they are returning home. And the Gatsby's own a dog. They're going to answer whether or not they believe that is probably true or probably false, and then support their evidence. And so this is really going to be teaching the skill of thinking skills, and it's something
critically. It's something our culture desperately needs.
Yes.
Yes. And then also in the religious one, we include the thinking toolbox. So 35 lessons that will build reasoning skills. Again, a desperately needed skill. I love the way the authors wrote these books, because they just, the stories, the reasoning pulls you in, and then it explains so clearly. You can see where the whole argument went off the charts. So, for example, lesson 19, does a possibility make a probability? So they build a case that the moon landing was a hoax, and they give you all the possible evidence for why the moon landing was a hoax, why it couldn't be true, and why, because how did the cameras not melt, and we couldn't see any stars in the pictures, and all these reasons why they think this was a hoax. And then they come back and say, does the report convince you? It is possible it was a hoax, but does that make it a probability? And so their point is, you need to not just look at the possibilities, you need to look at also both lines, both columns of evidence. And so here's some evidence that they did land on the moon. And so they give all the reasons why they think it did, the difference between the possibilities and the probabilities. And their bottom line is a cure for this fallacy is to look at the evidence as if we had balanced scale in our hands. We look at the evidence, we filter out the possibilities that are probably not true, and that's hard for people like us. We never want to throw away our favorite possibilities, but we need to get this right. Many choices in life can depend on judgments like this. And it's so true. And then they have exercises below. So again, chock full of great reasoning skills. Your child will walk away with a very valuable life skill. Okay, let's look at the games. So for the single player game, we have Diamond Quest. This is a phenomenal logic game. So it's going to start off with in the easy, it starts off with starter, which is going to give you a number of clues and tell you ideas about where this is all for the same challenge. So it's going to tell you the upper right corner is going to be the diamond that is orange, and it's going to give you some very definitive clues. Then as you start progressing through it, you've got on this one, all you know is that the top row is all green, the middle row is all blue, and you know that this one is the square one, and the bottom row is all orange. Then you also know that there's going to be this Z pattern of different shapes. There's going to be this pattern somewhere on the board, and there's going to be this pattern. So you know that wherever that orange square is, which we have determined we think is right here, then you know that that also is going to have a yellow making that shape. So very complex in its thinking and reasoning skills and deductive reasoning. And it's going to work your way up harder and harder, so that way their deductive reasoning is growing.
And then for the multiplayer game, we have 1UP. And again, we love to include multiplayer games because we want you to be able to have a connection point with your student no matter how old they are, continue to build the social skills that are required to play a game, to lose gracefully, to take gracious turns, not do a lot of smack talk or whatever it is that you're working on, all while targeting a thinking skill. So for this one, you're trying to do some strategy, and it's more complicated than initially looks, which adds to the fun of it. So with 1UP, every move, you increase the number of moves. Every turn you take, you increase the number of moves you make. So for the first one, you make a move, I'll be green, and your opponent makes the move. Then for the next, then you move the marker. For the next move you make, you're allowed to make 2 moves. And again, the goal is to get 4 of your color in a row, but you've got to be thinking through the possibilities that your opponent, by the time you get to 5 or even 7 moves, you got to be thinking what your opponent could do for 7 moves, how to plan your colors so they don't totally throw your plan out by their 7 moves. So really fun way to start connecting and also have that forward planning, critical thinking going on.
Okay, let's take a look at history. So for the faith-based program, we have the Mystery of History. This also comes with the digital download of the companion guide, which is where you're going to go to find all your activities. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to do 3 lessons a week. So there's an overview in the front of each quarter, and then you're going to go through 3 lessons, and that's your week. They recommend you add one of the activities from the companion guide as well. There are so many activities available in that companion guide. There is no way you're going to do them all, but there should be something that appeals to your student. Choose that and use that to strengthen what they've learned in here. But the text and the pictures, very engaging, and starts at the very beginning. So this is going to be creation to the resurrection. Very Bible-based, but it's also wonderful to start understanding. I've read that story in the Bible. I knew about that, but I didn't realize that at the same time in world history, this is also what was going on because that's not recorded in the Bible. And so you just get this wonderful integrated view of history. It's a phenomenal resource.
Also works well with multiple ages. So if you want to do a group class together.
And yes, and that's also in the companion guide. They're going to have the younger student, middle student, and older student activities, so you can choose something for the different age ranges that you have in your household.
Yeah. And then in the non-religious kit, we have the World History Detective. And what the Critical Thinking Company says is what sets this program apart from every other history program is that they are also adding in the critical thinking component. So your child is going to read the text and then answer the questions critically. And so not only will they be circle the right answer, there's also some fill in the blanks, and then there's also some defending of it. So a written response. What were the greatest contributions classical Greeks made to future civilizations? Explain how these contributions benefited future civilizations. Please use complete sentences to answer the question. So your child will not only read and regurgitate, they're also going to have to think critically for themselves of how to answer these questions.
Also included in both the faith-based and the non-religious is the Bear Grylls Survival Camp. So this is going to include geography, it's going to include history, and it's going to include survival skills. We find this to be a fun story prompt if you're looking for a little bit more in your language arts side of things to give your students a wonderful story prompt. But it's fun just to read through because you've got things like, okay, so the lost city of Z, and giving you some history about that, and then you turn to the next portion and it's jungle survivors, cannibal crash landing, the woman who fell out of a plane, and how to remove botfly larvae, because that's something we all wanted to know, as well as how to get out of quicksand. So you can see that the
scope is huge.
It's huge, and the possibilities are endless because you could just take that and run with it, make a great story.
Now we're going to talk about science. So in the faith-based kit, we have Science in the Atomic Age, the Berean Science. And what we like about this kit is it chronologically works its way through a scientific period. So this is the Atomic Age. Also, what we really like about this series is they are heavy into the hands-on learning and then also the conversational text. So typically there's I believe there's 14 chapters in this book, and so typically you'll schedule it to be about a chapter for every 2 weeks. And so practically what that's going to look like is you're going to have sections that you'll be reading and then stop and start an experiment. So for this one, you're experimenting on culturing bacteria. Then you're doing a comprehension check. You have the workbook that you can be filling out along with the comprehension checks.
read some more, another culturing bacteria, read some more, check on your bacteria, read some more. And so as you go through this, your child is getting a great variety of reading, experimenting, and also workbooks. And again, dealing with digestive enzymes, dealing with it through the history of science discoveries. So when it talks about, now we know that bread mold, let's go back to here. That bread mold produces a natural antibiotic which kills bacteria that otherwise would infect the wound. And how do we know that? That's through the discoveries of a Scottish scientist named Alexander Fleming and how he discovered that. So you're getting some of the history behind the science discoveries and then taking what he discovered and building on it to what we know nowadays. Here's what we know.
And of course, we include the lab kit so that way all the materials you need for the experiments that you wouldn't have at home, that should all be at your fingertips now.
Yes.
And then for the non-religious kits, we have Planet Earth. And this is going to give you a thorough study, mastery-based into Earth science. So it's going to start off with Earth in space, and it's going to go all the way through maps, rocks, weather, landforms, oceanography, and how do we know how deep, what's in the center of the Earth, and so many different questions are going to be answered. What I love about this is the pictures and the diagrams are phenomenal. So these could be difficult concepts to understand, but you start reading and you're like, oh, okay, yes, thank you. And the illustrations are just fantastic. So very easy to jump in and start reading and learn about the Earth and how to be good stewards of the Earth. Let's take a look at STEM. So this is the Intro to Filmmaking, which is included in both the faith-based and the non-religious kit. This is a phenomenal course. So our hearts and our brains are wired for stories, and this is going to teach your student how to create their own film. So it's going to walk you through each step of filmmaking, different evaluations, watching a film and evaluating it, a number of different lessons building up to the creation of your student's own film, which then they enter back to for the author's review, for their professional review, and then it gets entered into a film festival where there's even prizes. So a very motivating course, but in this digital age, this is such a phenomenal skill to have because, again, you're appealing to people who want to hear stories, but this will teach you how to get them that story in a professional manner.
And then we have the Fisher Technique, Mechanic and Statics. So this set will build a number of different models to teach your child mechanical engineering. Now, not every child will become a mechanical engineer, but they all need to have a working knowledge of how mechanics work. And so this set, what we like about it is that the pieces are quality pieces. They were actually, Fisher Technique was known for being used in prototype scenarios in Germany, and then they've actually now made kits out of them so that children can have that experience of building lifelike vehicles or structures with these pieces, quality pieces. Also, they include not only the workbook that has the step-by-step instructions on how to build it, but we include in our curriculum guide the copy of their manual that explains the why behind it. But with their permission, we've included that so that they not only build it and get the hands-on knowledge, which is the best way to learn, but also they can read it and understand the why behind the engineering.
Let's take a look at art. So we've got a couple of different things going on here. We've got My Year of Art, which helps your student to be creative every day of the year, and it's going to have a number of different prompts. Every day is going to be different. So for this one, it's draw your pet, real or imaginary, using a black marker. Sometimes it'll have you use paint. Sometimes it'll have you use a pencil. Draw some vegetables using only small circles and ovals. Draw a snowman in the hot desert. So just different things to get your brain to think through drawing or painting or creating in a different way. And the most important thing about being an artist or developing artist skills is that you keep on creating, and this will help your student to do that.
Yes.
We also have the Simply Draw with Bob Parsons. This is a phenomenal course. It is written in a very conversational, friendly, almost a jokester type of way with this funny cartoon guy throughout that just really draws your student in and helps them want to learn these techniques. But it's going to have all sorts of different, you put it into a 3-ring binder and you've got all kinds of different
things that you're going to work through. Foreshortening, overlapping, size. You're going to read the instructional pages. You're going to work on different shading techniques, different weaving techniques, and then he'll continue to teach you all the way through till you're doing different drawings and cross-hatching and shading, and so much skill in this 40 lesson course. So this book is designed to take a beginning artist and teach them the skills of drawing. Okay, and then last we have the Wattle and Loop Slow Sew Kit, the polar bear one. Now, this is what the package will come looking like, and then we have inside, you've got the instruction guide, and then here's one that we are in the middle of right now. And what I really love about this kit is by taking, they give you a selection of fabrics included, and they are new fabrics, they're reclaimed fabrics, they're antique fabrics that they have hand put together. And included in there, you have your thread and your needles. And basically, it's taking kind of the concept of paper collaging to the next level. So now you're doing it with fabric. And then you're also learning, your child will also be learning the skill of fraying the fabric to give it that kind of fuzzy look. They'll be learning different kinds of stitches. They'll learn how to blend the thread colors together to make the right colors that they want to accent the creation. And at the end, you have this beautiful work of art and a bunch of new learned skills that I just love. And then let's look at the learning helps. So Thinking Putty has always been a favorite for me because it gives your hands something to do, gives the students something to engage their hands while their brain is busy. And so they get to create their own color Thinking Putty, gives them everything they need to put it together. And then they just use this as a fidget when they're reading their history or when they're thinking about their math or watching the math lesson. It's something that they can be doing, and it helps their brain focus. And this year it's glow in the dark, which is fun. Also, we have the test prep 7th grade, and so whether your state requires state testing or does not, we still feel like this is a helpful book to include because it gives your child practice with test taking, it helps reduce test taking anxiety, and then as a teacher it gives you the ability to know what the test looked like and what their answers were, so you can kind of see where those answers came from, see how they're scoring, and then if they are required to take the state test, it preps them all the way so they're ready to go for that at the end of the year. I think that covers it. As always, if you have questions or if you want more information, please hop on our website, contact us by chat, email, phone. However, we'd love to help you. There's a customizer online, so you can customize some of this if you already have some of it or you're not ready for it. You can swap things out and customize it. But thank you for taking the time to watch the video with us, and we hope you guys have a great year.
www.timberdoodle.com